Every summer, millions of gardeners watch their plants wilt and die in the July heat and assume they just did not water enough. They water more. The plants die anyway. Because the problem was never the water. It was the bare soil around the roots, hot and dry and exposed, losing moisture as fast as they could add it. $1 of mulch laid around every plant holds that moisture in place, drops the soil temperature by up to 13 degrees and keeps roots alive through heat that would otherwise kill them. Gardeners knew this for centuries. Somehow, most people stopped doing it. Here's what you walk away with today. The single layer of material that cuts soil moisture loss by up to 70%, drops the temperature around your roots by 8 to 13 degrees, and costs about $1 at any garden store or absolutely nothing if you have a yard. The exact depth and placement that makes the difference between it working and doing nothing. The most common mistake that turns a good idea into a dead plant anyway. The free version, sitting right outside your door, that works just as well as the bagged product and has been available to you the whole time. And the reason this information never made it into the mainstream gardening conversation the way it should have, despite being one of the most well-documented and consistently proven practices in all of horticulture. Let us start with what is actually killing your plants right now, because most people have it wrong, and getting this right changes everything about how you garden in summer. When July arrives and temperatures climb past 90 degrees, the visible sign of a struggling plant is wilting leaves. The plant droops, it looks thirsty, so the natural response is to water it. You water it in the morning, you water it again in the afternoon when it droops again. You start to wonder if there's something wrong with the plant itself, some disease or weakness that no amount of water seems to fix. There is not. The problem is happening underground, in the soil around the roots, in a place you cannot see. Bare soil exposed to summer sun heats up fast, faster than most gardeners realize. Studies comparing mulched and bare soil found that uncovered ground in summer heat can reach temperatures at the root level that cause direct heat damage, far hotter than the air above it because soil absorbs and holds heat rather than releasing it the way air does. Researchers at Bartlett Tree Laboratory buried temperature sensors 3 inches below the soil surface and recorded readings every 15 minutes through an entire summer. The bare soil plots ran consistently and significantly hotter than mulched plots during the same period, not just for a few hours at midday, but all day and into the evening, because soil that has absorbed heat releases it slowly and the roots never get a cool break. When the soil around the roots reaches those temperatures, the roots begin to struggle. They cannot take up water efficiently in heat-stressed conditions. They pull back. And the water you added was never really the answer to a problem that was not about water in the first place. The fix is between the soil and the sun. A physical layer of material placed on top of the soil, 2 to 3 inches deep, that blocks direct sunlight from hitting the ground, slows evaporation dramatically, and insulates the root zone from the extremes of summer heat. That material is mulch, and the numbers behind it are not small. Studies from the University of Nebraska compared mulched and bare soil through a summer growing season and found that summer soil temperatures were reduced by 8 to 13 degrees Fahrenheit under a layer of mulch. 8 to 13 degrees at the root level, where the plant is actually struggling. That is not a minor comfort improvement. That is the difference between roots that are functioning normally and roots that are too heat-stressed to absorb the water you are pouring onto them. The same research showed that a 2 to 3 inch layer of organic mulch reduces soil moisture loss by up to 70% compared to bare soil, 70%. That means the water you add stays in the ground nearly 3 times longer. You water once, and the effect lasts as long as 3 waterings would have lasted in bare soil. The plant gets steady, reliable moisture instead of a wet, dry, wet cycle that stresses the roots every time the bare soil dries out between waterings. Now, before I give you the one rule that makes this work and the mistake that cancels the whole benefit, let me tell you what mulch actually is, because it is not a specialized product, and it is never needed to be. Mulch is any material you lay on top of soil to protect the ground beneath it. Wood chips, straw, dry leaves, grass clippings, pine needles, shredded newspaper, even a thick layer of compost. People have been using all of these things to protect garden soil for as long as people have been gardening. Walk into any forest and look at the ground. You will find it covered in a deep layer of fallen leaves, decomposing bark and plant debris that does naturally exactly what a bagged bag of wood chips does deliberately. The forest floor is almost never bare. Bare ground is what happens when people clear it, and bare ground is what cooks and dries and kills roots in the summer heat. This is not new knowledge. It is ancient knowledge. Farmers in every culture that grew food in hot climates figured this out, because the alternative was watching crops fail in the summer heat every single year. They covered their soil with straw between the rows. They left crop residue on the ground after harvest. They piled dry leaves around the base of fruit trees in autumn. They did not call it mulching or cite the University of Nebraska. They just noticed, over generations of watching plants live and die, that bare ground in summer was a problem and covered ground was not. The same observation, made independently by farming communities on every continent that experiences summer heat, converging on the same solution, because the physics of hot sun on soil is the same everywhere. A small bag of wood chip mulch at any garden center costs around $1 or $2 and covers a meaningful area of garden bed. A bale of straw from a farm store costs a few dollars and covers your entire garden. The leaves your own trees drop. Every autumn are completely free and work just as well as either of those things for most garden plants. The material itself is almost irrelevant as long as it covers the ground. The protection comes from the layer, not from any special property of any particular product. Now the one rule that decides whether this works or does not: depth. 2 to 3 inches is the minimum effective layer. This is the rule that almost nobody gets told, and it is the reason some gardeners try mulching and conclude it does not work. They scatter a thin covering over the soil, just enough to change the color of the ground, and then water as normal and find that the plants still struggle in July. A thin layer does not create the air pockets that provide insulation. It does not block enough sunlight to meaningfully slow evaporation. It does not create the temperature buffer at the root level. The research on 8 to 13 degree temperature reduction was done with proper 2 to 3 inch layers. Less than that, and the benefit drops sharply. More than 4 or 5 inches, and you can create problems with water penetration and air circulation. 2 to 3 inches, laid flat and even, covering the soil out to the drip line of the plant where the feeder roots extend, not just around the base of the stem. That is the effective layer. And here is the mistake that turns the whole thing against you, because one detail matters enough to reverse the benefit entirely. Do not pile mulch against the stem or trunk of the plant. This is called a mulch volcano, a mound of material heaped up against the base of the plant, often built out of the sincere belief that more is better. It is not. When mulch sits against the stem, it holds moisture directly against the plant tissue in a way that promotes rot and disease. It creates a perfect environment for insects and pathogens to attack the base of the plant. It can girdle a young plant and slowly kill it from the base up, while the rest of the plant looks fine. The mulch belongs on the soil, not on the plant. Keep it 2 to 3 inches away from the stem or trunk in every direction, forming a flat ring rather than a mound. That gap at the base is not a failure to cover the ground. It is the most important part of the application. Here's the part that turns this from a garden tip into something genuinely better than more watering. Mulch does not just protect. Over time, organic mulch, wood chips, straw, leaves, grass clippings, breaks down slowly and adds organic matter back into the soil beneath it. The same process that makes a forest floor rich and dark and full of life happens in miniature under every mulched garden bed. Earthworms come because the soil stays moist and cool enough to support them. Soil microbes thrive because the conditions are stable. The organic matter improves the soil's ability to hold moisture and nutrients season after season. A garden bed that has been mulched consistently for a few years develops a soil quality that no amount of fertilizer or watering can replicate. Because the improvement is structural, the soil itself has changed, not just been fed. So a mulched garden in July is not just a garden that survives the heat. It is a garden that comes out of the summer with better soil than it went in with, ready for a stronger growing season next year. The bare garden loses a little something every hot summer. A little organic matter burned off, a little soil structure broken down, a little of the microbial life cooked out of the top layer. The mulched garden gains a little. This difference compounds over years into a garden that requires less water, less fertilizer, and less intervention than a neighbor's bare soil bed right across the fence, maintained by someone doing what seems like the same work but getting dramatically different results, never quite understanding why the same effort produces such different outcomes. The reason is under the soil surface, and the thing that protects it costs $1. And there is one more benefit that nobody mentions when they talk about mulching for heat, and it compounds everything else: weeds. A 2 to 3 inch layer of mulch blocks the sunlight that weed seeds need to germinate. The weeds that were competing with your garden plants for the water and nutrients in that hot summer soil, the ones you would have been pulling every week through July and August, simply do not come up in the same numbers under a proper layer of mulch. The ones that do manage to push through are weakened by the barrier and pull out far more easily than weeds rooted in bare compacted soil. So the same layer that cuts your watering by up to 70% also dramatically cuts your weeding. Two of the most time-consuming garden chores in summer addressed by one application of a material that costs $1 and takes 10 minutes to put down. University extension programs from Nebraska to Louisiana to Michigan State have all documented these same effects and recommended mulching as one of the highest value practices any home gardener can adopt. It is not a niche technique or a new discovery. It is one of the most studied and consistently supported practices in horticulture. It just somehow never became the universal habit it should be, because there is no product to sell and no premium version to upgrade to. A bag of wood chips is a bag of wood chips. And the free version, sitting in your leaf pile from last October, works just as well. And here's the nearly free version that most gardeners are already producing without realizing it. Grass clippings collected when you mow your lawn are one of the most effective mulches available. They are already cut to a useful size, they are high in nitrogen, which feeds the soil as they break down, and they are produced in large quantities by almost every suburban lawn through the exact months when your garden needs help the most. Spread them 2 to 3 inches deep around your garden plants after mowing, and let them dry in place. Do not use clippings from grass that has been treated with herbicides, because those residues can harm garden plants. But untreated grass clippings, laid as mulch around your tomatoes and peppers and flowers in June, reduce the need for watering dramatically through July and August, and add nutrition to the soil as they decompose. The lawn is already making your garden's best summer tool. Most people bag it up and put it at the curb. Dry leaves do the same job. 1 autumn's worth of leaves from a single tree is enough to mulch a large garden bed through the following summer. Shred them coarsely before using. Whole leaves can met together and repel water, and store them in a corner of the yard until the following spring. The free mulch you raked up last October is sitting in a pile somewhere, waiting for use. The plants that are struggling in your July garden right now are a few inches of that material away from surviving the rest of the summer. So here's the whole system, start to finish, and the investment is $1 or a morning with a rake. Pick your material. Wood chips or straw from a garden store for $1 or $2. Dry shredded leaves from last fall, free from your own yard. Grass clippings from this week's mowing, free from the lawn you already maintain. Any of them work. Lay 2 to 3 inches of it on the soil around every plant that struggles in summer heat. Tomatoes, peppers, flowers, shrubs, anything with roots in that hot, exposed ground. Keep it away from the stems and trunks. Leave a 2-inch gap around the base of each plant so the material is not touching the stem at all. Extend the layer out to where the roots actually are, which for an established plant can be well beyond the edges of the visible canopy. Water the area once after laying the mulch to settle it and give the soil underneath a good drink to start from. Then step back. Do not water again until the soil under the mulch has had a chance to dry out, which will take considerably longer than it did with bare soil. Check by pushing a finger down through the mulch and into the soil. If the soil an inch down still feels damp, the plant does not need water yet. The mulch is doing its job. Let it. The water bill goes down. The watering trips go down. The wilting goes down. The roots stop cooking. The soil stays cooler and wetter through the worst days of July than bare soil ever could, no matter how often you stand there with a hose. The plants that were dying were not dying because you were a bad gardener or because the summer was too hot or because the variety was wrong. They were dying because something as simple as a bag of wood chips was missing from the soil around them, and nobody thought to tell you that was what mattered most. The mulch has always been available. The science has been documented for decades. The gardens have been baking, and the hoses have been running, and the plants have been dying every July for generations of people who were doing everything right, except the one thing that would have fixed it. Now somebody has said it. Share this with the one neighbor who waters every day in July and still cannot figure out why the tomatoes keep dying.